This is the Sony a6400. It was released in 2019 and I just bought it in 2024. In this video, I'm going to answer the question, is it still worth it and would I recommend it in 2024? If you've watched some of my other videos, then you'll know that I've been using the Sony a7 IV as my main photo and video camera for nearly 2 years now. So that begs the question, why would I buy a 5-year-old crop sensor camera when I already have a full frame beast of a camera? I was constantly finding myself shooting B-roll on my phone of the a7 IV or of me using the a7 IV, and I just wanted something of better quality. I do have the DJI Osmo Pocket 3, which has amazing image quality, don't get me wrong, but I mainly use that for vlogging type stuff. I wanted another camera that I could use all of my lenses on to get a similar type image that I'm used to from the a7 IV. Secondly, for thumbnails. Again, of the a7 IV or of me using the a7 IV. The iPhone shots are fine, but to be honest, I hate working with iPhone shots in Lightroom. They don't edit as well. The raw files that come out of a Sony are just way easier to work with. So I thought, what the hell, this camera is under $1,000 and I already know that the photo and video quality is good because I've rented the camera before. I want to split this video into the photo aspect and the video aspects of the camera. Let's talk photos first. As you'd probably expect, when it comes to photos, this camera is still a beast in 2024. The photo quality is really good, and to be honest, I can't really tell the difference between the photos that come out of this camera versus those that come out of my a7 IV. Obviously, the a6400 is a crop sensor camera, so when I use my full frame lenses on the camera, the field of view is different. But I could still use all of my full frame glass on this camera, which means that I didn't have to go out and buy any additional lenses to use this camera. The lens that I've mainly been using on this camera is this Tamron 17 to 28mm lens, which on a full frame camera is a wide angle lens, but when you put this on a crop sensor camera, it converts to like a 25 to a 42mm lens, which is a pretty nice little walk around lens for portraits, for landscapes, for just everyday stuff. For a less than $1,000 camera, this thing is also pretty feature rich and it has many of the same capabilities as the a7 IV. The autofocus is pretty solid. The eye autofocus isn't quite as good as the a7 IV, but it's still okay. You don't get bird and animal eye autofocus like you do with the a7 IV, but that's fine with me. The raw files come out great, just like the a7 IV, and they're really easy to work with. It has a 24 megapixel sensor, which in my opinion is more than enough. The a7 IV having a 33 megapixel sensor just means that I can crop more in Lightroom after, but again, this is a sub $1,000 camera, so I can't really say that having 24 megapixels is a drawback of the camera. It's also pretty common for most cameras to have around 24 megapixels, even some of the more expensive ones. A few cons to the a6400 versus a full frame body like the a7 IV. For one, it doesn't have a joystick, so if you're used to using one, it's going to take a little getting used to. This camera does have a touchscreen though, which I tend to use quite a bit just to make up for this. I have noticed that this camera isn't quite as good as the a7 IV when it comes to shooting at really high ISOs, but it's still totally usable, and if you use a little bit of noise reduction, you can still shoot in pretty low light scenarios. The viewfinder is off to the side on the a6400 instead of in the middle, which I don't like, but this is just kind of a sacrifice that you're gonna have to make if you want to use a smaller camera body. Obviously, the camera body itself is a lot smaller compared to the full frame camera bodies like the a7 IV, which in my opinion is a big benefit to using a camera like this. To be able to have all of these features and really good image quality in such a small camera body is super appealing, and since I got the a6400, I've found that I've taken it out with me a few times on occasion instead of the a7 IV just to have a smaller camera. I was even considering just bringing the a6400 on my recent trip to Ontario, but I decided to take the a7 IV in the end just because of the video features of the camera. So let's talk video on the a6400. The a6400 shoots 4K 24 and 4K 30. You can shoot in higher frame rates, but unfortunately it's going to be in 1080p. So for slow-mo stuff, this is probably not the camera that you want. However, for 4K 24 stuff, the video quality that comes out of this camera is actually surprisingly good. I've been shooting everything on this camera in S-Log 2 and it color grades and edits super easily. You don't get a flip out screen, but you get a flip up screen, so if you wanted to vlog with this camera, you can do that. Personally, I wouldn't vlog with this camera just because I have the DJI Osmo Pocket 3, but if you were looking for a camera to do YouTube stuff, vlogging stuff, you can definitely do that with this camera. The video autofocus on this camera is pretty good. It doesn't have continuous eye autofocus like the a7 IV, but it's still totally usable. If you're looking for a camera to shoot YouTube talking head stuff like this video, then I'll show you right now what that would look like on the a6400. Here's the two cameras side by side so that you can see the difference. Some missing features from this camera versus the camera like the a7 IV is a second card slot. The a6400 only has a single card slot, so if you're doing client type stuff, this might be a deal breaker. There's no full-size HDMI port on the a6400, only a mini one. I don't know, whatever, it's just something to know. I know I've been comparing the a6400 to the a7 IV a lot, which isn't really a fair comparison, but I just wanted to showcase what kind of features that you're not getting with this camera versus a more expensive camera. To answer the main question of this video, is the a6400 still worth it in 2024? Absolutely, I mean, I just bought it. I think for a beginner photographer or YouTuber or someone who just wants a camera that can shoot good photo and video, for under $1,000, I don't think that you can go wrong with this camera. And it's actually the camera that I recommended in my camera guide video for a camera under $1,000. Will this camera replace my a7 IV? No, probably not, but it's a good B camera and a perfect little compact camera if I don't want to lug around my full frame setup. Alright, that's it for this video. Subscribe, like it if you got something from it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Laters on the Menjay.
What did I just say?